Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this busy Friday afternoon. And I say it's busy because this is going to be, this is usually like the week where everyone is finally going back to college. I'm one of those people, so I've been packing a lot every single day. That's partly why you guys didn't see me a little bit earlier on this podcast, because I've been doing a bunch of packing and I couldn't really let that intervene. And so I'll be on campus for probably next week, so you guys are going to see a different background coming in for the next week. And before I begin with the first segment, I'm just going to go ahead and explain what all the segments are. So first, I'm going to talk about Shaquille O'Neal and his opinions on the Olympics. Shaq doesn't really tend to think very highly of a lot of the stars that play in today's NBA unless you're like a specific few. So I'm just going to talk about his opinions on the game and things like that. Then in the second segment, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some future NBA stars. So players that have the potential on being stars in the NBA, but they're not right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and list off some of the players who I think have the best chances of being stars in the NBA. And then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about after the Olympics, a lot of players got drug tested, and I'm just going to read it off of an article. And the player who said that players got drug tested was Anthony Edwards, so take his opinion with what you will, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk about that in the segment. And then in the fourth segment, I'm going to look at another article that's claiming that LeBron James and Steph Curry are probably hinting at something on Instagram, maybe hinting some sort of team up. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. And then we have the special fifth segment where I reveal who I think should be the MVP of a specific year. So be sure to tune into that segment, and I reveal that at the end of the fourth segment to figure out exactly what that is. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we do love to hear from you guys during the show. And regardless whether you have a burning question, a hot take, or something you've been dying to share, we are all ears. This show is all about keeping the conversation lively and making sure that your voice is a part of the mix. So don't be shy to drop your thoughts in the chat. If you really want to make sure that your chat gets featured on the show, then you can go ahead and hit Super Chat. It's a great way to support the channel, and it's guaranteed to get featured on our show if you comment or send in one of your Super Chats. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net. That also really helps the show, and you can tip and donate to get your comment or question recognized if Super Chat isn't really your thing. So those are two options that you can use. Either one of those would help the show. So with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and talk about the first segment, which is regarding Shaq's comments and his opinions and feelings towards Team USA's Olympic showing in Paris. So if you guys haven't really been following in on Shaq in the recent years, then you probably wouldn't know Shaq's opinions on today's NBA players. He doesn't really think very highly of that many players. Like, the only players that I can really tell you that he has high opinions and high regard for are Steph Curry and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And one of the biggest reasons why he greatly prefers Giannis Antetokounmpo more than any other NBA player is because Giannis reminds Shaq of himself. So that's one of the reasons why Giannis is held under such high regard when you're talking about Shaq. And that's sort of been the really big thing. Hold on just 1 second.